Alright everybody, diecastmania here, and welcome back to another video. Today we have an assortment of John Deere skid steers by Ertl. So we have the 1/50th scale 332G, the 1/64th scale 320E, which is also rebadged as the 320G. So we have these two, as well as the Ertl Iron series 318E skid steer in no mentioned scale whatsoever. So today we're going to delve into the Ertl John Deere skid steers and kind of just have a look at them and see what we come up with. Starting with the 1/50th scale version, this model was seemingly first released in 2019. That is the first mention of it I can see on Ertl's website from the catalogs. It was launched alongside the 1/50th scale 35G mini excavator, and from everything I can see, this model was discontinued sometime in 2021 or 2022. As the 22 and 23 catalogs no longer show the 332G model and only show the 35G mini excavator, and then the 320E or 320G in 1/64th scale. So this model originally retailed for around $18, and for whatever reason, as what happens with discontinued Ertl models, the price just goes up almost dramatically. So this nowadays is around $30, give or take, which for a skid steer model that is as basic as this one is, it's a tall ask. So we'll get on to the functionality. So it rolls. It has the vertical lift style linkage. Looks decently high. It dumps. The 332G just barely squeaks by with the first gear Mack Granite dump truck. The bucket curl is decent. The bucket doesn't exactly level with the ground, so you have to tip it down a little bit. As per all Ertl models, basically, it still has satellite dish sized rivets, but you know, other than that, a dab of paint here and there, it basically does the job. One thing that I will never understand is why the 1/64th scale version has perforations on the mold for the cab, and the 1/50th scale version has nothing. It's just barely indented into the plastic. So, I mean, for what it is, it's nice to see a 1/50th scale Ertl John Deere skid steer loader, but for whatever reason, they decided to discontinue it and have no real replacement for it. And I think, you know, the 320E, as nice as it is for 1/64th scale, it really just doesn't fill the role of the 1/50th scale 332G. So, quick little overview of the 320E. Rolls very nicely. The bucket functions just about the same as the 1/50th scale 332. Does just not quite as good because of the size. Just everything is slightly less functional, and there's more adhesive paper style decals used for the details, and the tooling is split in half, whereas the 1/50th scale version, everything is more solidly made with different components. They are more difficult to see, you know, visible seam lines or things like that. So, I mean, the 320 is pretty nice for what it is. It's a neat little piece. but it is unfortunate that the 1/50th scale 332 has been discontinued. Now, the 318E, as part of the Ertl Iron series, this is a mystery to me. From what I can understand, the Ertl Iron is kind of like a hybrid between the collect and play that you can buy at on the racks and kind of like the Diecast Masters retail kind of lower end series. So whoever bought this first got paid $2.99 for it, which is quite a deal, I guess. Came out in 2022 to 2023, and this is the 318E. So basically these are a non-marked scale series from Ertl, and low cost, more of a toy than anything else. So here we have the Ertl Iron 318E skid steer out of the package, and first impression, this is definitely a budget kind of die-cast piece. It kind of is a cross between the 1/50th scale 332G and the old collect and play skid steer. And it doesn't have hydraulic cylinders or anything. The arms and the bucket are entirely plastic, but the body is die cast. And if you put the two side by side, the size is really similar. The difference is barely noticeable. It does have an interior just like the other two, but the only thing it doesn't really have is cylinders or rubber tires. They have solid wheels on a common axle. It still has the interior. The arm and the bucket moves. Interestingly enough, you have an actual textured grill back here, not an adhesive decal like the 1/64th scale version. It really quite similar to the 1/50th scale 332G. So kind of have the feeling that they just threw 318E on there just to differentiate the two, and other than that, it could very well pass as a 1/50th scale 332. This kind of reminds me of the old difference between the Prestige series Ertl and the no series Ertl. So interestingly enough, they did try to model the linkage for the vertical lift, but essentially the arms function like a standard center pivot skid steer boom. And due to the fact it has no cylinders, it sort of reaches high enough, but because of the lack of the functioning vertical lift linkage, the bucket just is in a really awkward position and isn't where it should be compared to the lift path on the actual vertical lift linkage. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the Ertl John Deere skid steers. We'll go compare them to some other models. Starting with the 1/64th scale, we have another Ertl piece, the Bobcat S76, and once again we can see Ertl is pretty good at having perforations on the mesh for the cab in 1/64th scale. But in 1/50th scale, they just can't do it for whatever reason, which is kind of puzzling. So the Deere definitely wins in terms of functionality compared to the Bobcat, though it almost looks like the linkage system on the Bobcat uses more parts. Well, actually no, it does seem like a pretty close tie. There are the two. Moving on to 1/50th scale, we have the Bobcat S750. 332 is quite a bit bigger, a little bit chunkier. So it sort of calls into question the scale on the Ertl. I don't have a wheeled cat, but this is the Cat 259D by Diecast Masters. And the Deere is quite large, you know, quite chunky. New Holland C185. And again, the Deere just totally dwarfs just about any of the Skidsteer models I have in 1/50th scale. So, with that being said, we have our set of Ertl John Deere Skidsteer models. There you go. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. See you all in the next video.